What's up, guys? We are back on Lexalexus with more championship score predictions. We've made it to week 13. As always, guys, it is the same procedure. You leave your score predictions in the comments down below. You guys are able to score some points on the Lexalexus Football Prediction League. And do feel free to share your predictions and opinions of this upcoming game week in the comments down below. I always like seeing the differing opinions from all of the viewers. I had an actually okay week of predictions. I actually got the Hull and Charlton game right and got some results that not everyone predicted. So a little bit better performance in that part, but still a little bit below my standards. I mean, I got to remember, I've got a prediction league to defend. I won last year, so I'm not certainly holding any pride so far for this season. The viewer getting shout out today is Arla Sky. Thank you for recently subscribing to the channel. If you do subscribe to the channel, it is likely your name will be shouted out in an upcoming video. If you guys can also like the channel, it really does help. If let's go for 40 likes. You guys smashed the like target last week. Thank you so much for the terrific support, and if you could share the channel too, it means that we'll more likely grow and our target of 4+ subscribers will be a little bit more realistic. But as always, guys, thank you for the support. Without any further ado, let's start predicting week 13. We start things off with Wrexham versus Coventry. This, I think, is a really interesting game to break down based on different circumstances. Wrexham recently played out a draw against Middlesbrough, and actually a really well battled draw. Actually, I felt that they actually kept themselves in the game for pretty much the whole time. Maybe a bit gutted that they threw away the lead when they did, but they have shown that they are very competitive on the road. But Wrexham would have had a Carabao Cup game to forget a couple of days ago when they lost out to Cardiff, and it means that Cardiff, I believe, if I'm right, the only non-Premier League side left in the Carabao Cup. They've got a game against Chelsea to look forward to, Cardiff, so well done to them for getting past their Welsh rivals. But certainly the reaction I saw, especially on Twitter, was really unhappy for a Wrexham point of view for how just demotivated they were in that game. It almost felt like that they weren't really trying to win second balls, and yeah, it was just a below par performance for Wrexham, and they definitely would want to provide a response, but I think they are facing the toughest team in the league so far. Coventry are proving to be the team to beat. They are looking unstoppable. They are starting to open a bit of the gap between them and second place and the playoff teams. However, in the last couple of games, they have been conceding quite a few goals. Defensively, they don't look quite as strong as they have been, but they are still finding the goal in the back of the net. And Wrexham, as we know, they did actually pick up their first home win in the championship recently against Oxford, so maybe their home form's turned a bit of a corner. But as a whole, the sample size will tell you that Wrexham have not been doing so well at home at all this season across all competitions, and Coventry as a whole have just been really strong. As a prediction, I think we'll get goals from both sides based on how the defences were. Coventry, whilst they did win, they could have conceded more goals if Watford were just a bit more clinical and if Rushworth didn't make as many saves as he did. I'm going to go for a scoreline, a 3-1 away victory to Coventry. I think, as I said, both teams will likely to score, but I think Coventry will favour the fact that they've not had to play midweek as well. I think they've got a longer recovery time, and I think that will do more harm for Wrexham than it does for Coventry. Let me know what you think in the comments. Next up, we've got Leicester going up against Blackburn, and it might arguably be a good time to play Leicester. They have lost back-to-back games, and certainly some pressure is going to start growing on Marti Cifuentes if he cannot turn around Leicester's dogged run of form, because we've been speaking about Leicester being quite draw heavy, and for that, we couple that with their back-to-back defeats now, it makes it very clear that Leicester have just not picked up enough wins at this stage of the season so far. They are still in the midst of the top half of the table, but that's certainly not the expectation of where Leicester would want to be. And if there is a points deduction looming for Leicester's point of view, they'll be wanting to try and do as much work as they can do to try and work against that. They're facing a Blackburn side where Blackburn will feel in a little bit in slightly better spirits, because not only did they manage to get their, I think it was their third win of the season against Southampton, beating them by 2-1, but they did so after going, I believe, a goal down and actually completing a comeback very, very late on against Southampton. So very, very good mentality from Blackburn to back themselves, and certainly if Blackburn didn't get a win there, there's no guarantee that Ishmael would have stayed as Blackburn boss, and the fact they did get those 3 points at home is going to be very crucial. Away from home, I don't know how I'm going to feel about this one. I do remember quite vividly that Blackburn did beat Leicester away from home last outing. It was actually last game of the season, wasn't it, where Sammy Smodics did that little solo goal there. So I do recall Blackburn getting the better out of Leicester, but of course very different circumstances going into this game. Prediction, I think with the options Leicester have, I think they should be able to go back to winning ways. I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to Leicester. Honestly, I think it will be close and competitive. A draw wouldn't surprise me, but I'm just going to edge it to the home side. Next up, we've got Norwich versus Hull. Two very different seasons from these two clubs. Norwich are finding themselves now in the bottom three. They are the only side who've lost at least 5 consecutive games in a row. And they're 23rd. I am shocked to see Norwich as low as they are, and what is just really ringing true to their performances at the moment, defensively they look very, very disorganised, but also their confidence is really not making them shine going forward. They're finding a couple of blanks. Hull have certainly done a bit better than what I would have expected of them. They are in the middle part of the table, only picking up a draw in the end against Charlton. This game though, I think it's a really good time to play Norwich. They've still not picked up a single point at home, let alone a single win at home. And Hull have picked up some decent away points so far this season too. I think the signs are telling me, I mean, it will be so typical for Championship if Norwich do randomly win out the blue, but I think it will be Hull that pick up the 3 points here. As a prediction, I'm going to go for a 2-0 victory to Hull City. Honestly, it could be any scoreline with the defence that sort of is shown on display from Norwich's point of view, but I'm going to edge the Tigers to win by 2-0 and to keep a clean sheet. Next up, we've got West Brom versus Sheffield Wednesday. West Brom will be wanting to back themselves, with a response. They lost against Ipswich, and actually West Brom have been struggling to find the ball in the back of the net. They have been firing a couple of blanks going forward. They looked a little bit more sort of goal and chance creating heavy at the start of the season, but that has dried up a little bit. Ryan Mason has got to figure something out to allow West Brom to create more chances per 90 minutes. They are back at home, which I do think they are a little bit more confident at home as they have been on the road. But they're facing a Sheffield Wednesday side potentially under a little bit of rejuvenation. Now, of course, I recorded my last video before the news that Sheffield Wednesday entered into administration, and actually what that has meant is that Chansiri has officially lost control. And I think I actually went through a little bit of a rant about Chansiri slowly destroying the club. The control is gone from Chansiri, and that I think is the best news that Sheffield Wednesday will want to hear. Of course, the administration will have some short-term repercussions, which I honestly feel at this moment they are willing to take the hit as long as they find an appropriate buyer, and that is still very important. The buyer needs to be fit and, with purpose, and can actually be a decent owner that will financially support the club and will improve the club long term as well. So still a long way to go, but definitely with the sinking ship that was Chansiri's ownership, the fact that that's gone now is a really good sign. And it was shown with the numbers that they attended against Oxford. Obviously it was not a performance they would have wanted. It was a defeat against Oxford, a bit of a damning one, considering that Oxford would have been around their position in the table. Oxford gained a great advantage over that, and they've been hit with a 12-point deduction as well. So they're 16 points off safety now, currently I think on -6 points. So yeah, it does feel like relegation is going to be inevitable, unfortunately, for Sheffield Wednesday. And that sounds crazy for me to say this early in the season, but yeah, a lot will need to go their way, and they'll need to go through like a 5, 6, 7 game winning streak if they want to have any ample opportunity of getting them out of this position. And I just can't see that, unfortunately. Prediction, honestly, I think Sheffield Wednesday games are going to be very competitive and very tight now, with the support especially growing for Sheffield Wednesday, trying to, you know, give them all the encouragement on the pitch. But I think West Brom will be able to win this one. As a prediction, I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to West Brom. I'll back Sheffield Wednesday to get on the score sheet, but I think West Brom will pick up the 3 points here. Next up, we've got Birmingham. They face Portsmouth. Birmingham, again, with a pretty bad result for them as well. They lost against Bristol City. Ultimately, could have been a little bit more from Bristol City's point of view as well. For a 1-0 scoreline doesn't really reflect the performance side of things for Bristol City's point of view there. But then basically the Portsmouth side, where them similarly, they are struggling for goals too. They also fired a blank, losing at home against Stoke City, where I think it was a much more significant result for Stoke than it was for Portsmouth. They are finding themselves at the moment struggling for goals. I think they are going to be up there for the lowest teams to have scored at this stage of the championship so far. So a 0-0 draw wouldn't be a massive shock, but I do have a sneaky feeling it's either going to be a home win for Birmingham, just, you know, with the fact they've got home advantage. But I think we've just seen this so many times where they could get something, but then something gets in the way. I'm actually going to go for a draw here. Just a very unhelpful draw from both these sides. I'll go for a 1-1 draw here. And ultimately, that will really amplify the pressure on Chris Davis. Next up, we see Charlton going up against Swansea City. So Charlton just having an incredible season. I mean, take away the draw against Hull City. Ultimately, they probably would have wanted more from that game, looking into the game, especially with the form that they were in. But the game before that, they demolished Ipswich Town by 3-0. They're facing a Swansea City side who have been really inconsistent at this point of the season. They also played in Carabao Cup action against Manchester City. Yes, slightly changed squad from what we would see in the Championship, but there are some first team players that did feature, and ultimately they are not going to have a long recovery time in the length of what Charlton are going to have. So that ultimately gives Charlton, for me, a much bigger advantage going into this game. Pretty spirited performance for Swansea to get the first goal, but ultimately Manchester City has just shown their depth and quality and managed to beat Swansea in the end by 3-1. So spirited, but unfortunately not quite enough to get into the quarterfinals there. And I think honestly, just that game hasn't come at a good time if they wanted to get something from this game. And for me, Charlton just playing really, really well so far this season. I think they'll carry on with their amazing form. Prediction, I'm going to go 2-1. I was thinking of a clean sheet, but actually I think Swansea have got enough firepower where they can get at least one goal. So yeah, I'll back both teams to score, but Charlton to win. Next up, we got Oxford versus Millwall. So Gary Rowett is facing against his former managed club. That's going to be very interesting to see that dynamic here. Oxford picked up a great win away from home against Sheffield Wednesday. Packed out Hillsborough as well. So to cope with that pressure, it was just such a very professional performance, a very typical Gary Rowett performance. And I think with any other manager that wasn't too experienced in the Championship, I think they would have crumbled under the pressure. But Gary Rowett kept a cool head, and actually his Oxford side played very, very well in that game. But facing the Millwall side, though, who are really trying to keep up the pace with Coventry's amazing form. They've won 4 games in a row, and they are now 3rd place. And ultimately, what has been most impressive about Millwall, and Oxford will not want to hear this, is their away form. They've been absolutely brilliant on the road, just approaching the games in the right manner and scoring plenty of goals for it. Now, I could be saying this and then they could fire nothing in this game, but as a prediction, just based on the stats we've been seeing, I think it's got to be Millwall who I've got it back here at this moment. As a prediction, I'll go for a 2-0 away victory to Millwall, and that will really make them a very strong contender at this stage of the season to get into the top 6. Next up, we've got Queen's Park Rangers versus Ipswich. Differing outcomes for both of these clubs, but both involving a 1-0 scoreline. Queen's Park Rangers were involved in a 1-0 defeat against Derby. Disappointing in that one. Never really got going, and when Derby did score their goal, they just did not offer enough to get the equaliser, and disappointing for me because I did predict a draw in that game. I was expecting a little bit more from Queen's Park Rangers there. For Ipswich, they got the win against West Brom, which shocked me because I said in my last week's prediction Ipswich have got a very terrible record against West Brom, but it highlights the struggles that West Brom have been having, which I mentioned already when I was predicting them about their lack of goals. And just Jack Clark going off the bench, getting the goal. Great strength and quality from Ipswich, and we already know about that players of the quality of Jack Clark can get off the bench and get a goal. But away from home, I'm not been convinced by a single performance from Ipswich so far this season. Still looking for their first away win. Queen's Park Rangers have been good value for money at home. I wouldn't be surprised if Queen's Park Rangers pick up all 3 points here, but as a prediction, I'm going to compromise and go for a 1-1 draw. I've been predicting a couple of draws today. I've been trying not to be too draw heavy, but I do think this one for me will be level. I can't back either one of these sides at the moment just based on what I've seen, so I'll compromise for a draw. Let me know what you think though in the comments. Next, we've got a very interesting game. We've got Sheffield United going up against Derby County, 2 sides near the bottom of the Championship. Sheffield United currently still in the bottom 3. They were facing a pretty frustrating game against Preston to go 2-0 up and then suddenly lose it by 3 goals to 2. I mean, just the shift of mentality was quite surprising ultimately, and great mentality from Preston to keep fighting and to get the win. Of course, you know, I can't disrespect Preston in that point of view, but for Sheffield United's point of view, they was comfortable and cruising, and for the control to slip like that is a bit concerning, and it's very unlike Chris Wilder, so it's certainly going to be a massive challenge for him to really turn this squad around. We have been seeing improvements from Sheffield United, but ultimately, if they've still got aspirations of top 6, those are just fading and dwindling away. Obviously, it's not impossible. We've seen teams in a much worse position still getting to the top 6 at this stage of the season, but they're going to have to be really, really consistent, and I just don't see them consistently picking up good results at the moment. But this is the Derby side, which, talking about consistency, we've been struggling for consistency for Derby at the start of the season, but now they've won back-to-back games, and because of that, they are now outside of the relegation zone by quite a few points now, so they've got a little bit of a cushion. So brilliant timing for Derby to improve their momentum now, picking up 1-0 home wins in their point of view. And yeah, good one against Queen's Park Rangers last time around here. For this game, I think it will be a low-scoring one. I'm just thinking it might be Sheffield United, just on home advantage. Derby could certainly scrape something and get, you know, a very narrow away win here. But I don't know. My instinct is telling me that Sheffield United will get the first goal. And I think if Sheffield United do get the first goal, I think they will win this one. And I don't think they're going to capitulate at Bromwell Lane. As a prediction, I'm going to go for a 1-0 victory to Sheffield United. I don't think there'll be many goals, but I think they might be the side that narrowly edges Derby in this game. Next up, we've got Southampton versus Preston. The pressure just continues to grow on Will Steele. I haven't really talked about it with Liam Manning for Norwich, but there'll be another one where the pressure is just absolutely just massive. And I've got to say right now, I don't think Will Steele or Liam Manning have got a lot of time left for their clubs. And for Will Steele, it's going to feel very disappointing. He would have been appointed, backed in the transfer window as well. And ultimately, just things are not working. But stats would tell you that they are playing quite well, Southampton. But it's just the individual mistakes that's really costing them at this moment of time. And I do know that sort of mentality was a big factor to their relegation for the Premier League last season, and the fact that it's carried on in the Championship is just not a good sign whatsoever. So at this moment, I do find Saints pretty vulnerable, but they're facing a Preston side missing some key midfield players going into this game, but a great win last time around against Sheffield United. So I do find Preston playing a little bit better, but I think with the way that this game's going to go, I think Southampton are going to have more of the ball, and Preston are going to have to try and be effective on the break and just be defensively resolute, which I think they'll be resolute defensively. But I just feel of the quality and the depth that Southampton do have, I think if they do sit off them a little bit too long, I think they will be punished for it. I can't back Southampton based on how they're playing at the moment. Let's go for a draw. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Again, I haven't been too draw heavy, so let's go for another draw this time around. I just can't pick either one of these sides to pick up a win at the moment, so I'll compromise here with a draw. Penultimate game, we're going to predict Stoke versus Bristol City. Now, this is a playoff clash. Bristol City currently sitting in 4th place. Stoke City currently sitting in 5th. This is going to be intriguing. So both picked up great results last week. Stoke picking up an away win against Portsmouth. For Bristol City's point of view, they picked up also a 1-0 win, but this time against Birmingham. So I think this is going to be an interesting contest. You know, Bristol City have been decent value for money away from home, actually, and I think they have naturally picked up a couple more points on the road than they have done at home so far this season. But Stoke have been very consistent at the Bet365, and I think it is still the case. I don't know if the 2-0 defeat to Millwall has not made it the case, but I knew at least when they beat Wrexham, they were the team that conceded the less goals in the league. So this game to me feels like it could be a really edgy contest where it will be 0-0, but the aggression that Bristol City show in their style of play, I don't think will settle for a 0-0 draw. So I do think there will be opportunities where both teams will make mistakes, but it's just a question if they're going to be clinical with those chances. As a prediction, I think I'm going to go with home advantage here. I'm going to back Stoke City. Don't always back Stoke, but I think I've got to recognise how well they started the season. Bristol City could draw this game. A draw wouldn't surprise me, but I'm going to be a little bit brave in my prediction. I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to Stoke. I think they could get something here if it all clicks. So yeah, I'll go for home advantage being my main reason for this prediction. Let me know what you think in the comments. And then for the final game, we've got Watford going up against Middlesbrough. Two teams that certainly didn't get a win last time around, but both teams performed in good spells. So Watford, they did lose against Coventry by 2 goals, but they go into some really good areas, and actually it was actually one of the more better performances that Watford have had since Javi Gracia has come in. And I think Watford are on the cusp of something really special, but again, we've been speaking about it with Southampton. Individual mistakes are really costing these sides from being able to take, their good spells and being able to pick up all 3 points. Middlesbrough, I know recently have dropped the occasional 3 points in the game, hence why Coventry are extending their lead at the top. Bit of a frustrating one, a 1-1 draw with Wrexham. They had to fight pretty hard to get the equaliser for that game as well. So good mentality to get and search that equaliser. If they had more time, maybe they could have tried and got the winner there, but ultimately they didn't. This is a very tough game. I do think Watford, if they show anything like what they did against Coventry, they will give Middlesbrough one hell of a game. But as a prediction, we've seen Middlesbrough before that even if they are under the pressure, they just are so defensively organised. So I see this one cutting each other out again. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I do back both teams to score. I can see the threats from both of them there, but I think naturally as a whole, I just don't see either team edging each other's out at the moment. So yeah, I'll compromise and therefore go for a draw. Let me know what you think in the comments. So there you have it, guys. Those are my week 13 score predictions. If you agree with me, let me know in the comments down below. As always, guys, make sure to leave your predictions in the comments. It really, really does help. And liking, subscribing and sharing the video if you've enjoyed it also really helps with growth of this channel, and hyping the video as well also really helps too. But that is going to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary if you saw any of this video, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next midweek set of predictions. Take care, everyone.